Actually, this is my first on the list, actually. But last question: is Jesus a myth, or is he really just a literary device?
Yeah, well, I mean, uh, the I think that the question is semantical in many senses. I mean, uh, um, was the character that we see in the gospel a embellishment and a sort of transmogrification of some historical person? And if you read Josephus, you can see that there really was a Jewish kind of leader of an eminent family who was captured on the Mount of Olives, and then he was crucified and pruned, by Titus. So there was this Jewish individual who seemingly, if you look at the Josephus, gospel typology, was a real person.
Yeah.
And it's easy to imagine. I think his name would have been Eleazar, based on the coins and also the gospel use of the term Lazarus. I think this is actually who they're referring to. Is there are coins that have in the first century rebellion an individual called Lazarus the priest, and I think that would have been probably the basis, ultimately for the character Jesus Christ in many ways. And that this was who
Yeah.
they were goofing off of with their literature. Um, but um, he is not a myth. A myth is, as I use the term, is something that develops organically. It's like you're not trying to fool people when you talk about Hercules. It's more there was someone who was a great warrior, and then this is embellished over time, and then the stories become codified, and the next thing you know, you've got Hercules as a literary character. That's a myth. In this instance with Jesus, this is a deliberate insertion of a propaganda tool from the top going down. And it's kind of the opposite of a myth that bubbles up. This is Jesus is a propaganda device. He's a character who's created by the oligarchs of the time for the purpose of controlling, their populations. I mean, the idea, the political purpose of the Gospels, I suspect, was to read them in uh, by priests of the imperial cult, to people who were susceptible to the propaganda of the militaristic messianic movement.
Mhm.
I think Josephus talks about this, that they're worried that this messianic rebellion will spread throughout the empire. Jews are all over the place, and they don't want the Jews in Gaul to suddenly rebel. Um, and so they wanted to produce a literature that would basically just make it hard for the missionary activities to succeed.
Mhm.
And oddly enough, it completely failed. I mean, as a political device. I mean, imagine you're in the imperial court at Rome at around
Yeah.
100. You just got the Gospels written, and you start to disseminate it there, and that the Jews are winding up for another rebellion, because the Rome has spies everywhere, and so you get your literature out. You've got priests of the imperial cult are just told to read the story to Jews, and then in 114 you have the Kitos rebellion, and just even though it's been lost to history for some reason, it's not often mentioned, but if you just read the details of the Kitos rebellion, it was the worst bloodbath in the Roman Empire's history. I mean, the Jews rebelled. They had kind of a messianic leader, which is logical, and they genocided. I mean, they got control of Cyprus, and they killed all 250,000 Gentiles. They literally just lined them up and
Wow.
killed every one of them. They depopulated uh, Cyrenia, which is modern day Libya, which had been the breadbasket of Rome. There's an actual letter they found of a Roman magistrate heading south down the Nile, trying to get away from the Jews. In other words, they
Mhm.
completely destroyed the Roman military
Mhm.
power. And this led to, this bloodbath with Trajan, and then that still wasn't enough. And then in 133, the Jews rebelled again. Right, you had the Bar Kokhba rebellion, which is
Yeah.
another total empire-wide bloodbath. So the project as a political kind of Hail Mary failed, didn't work. They couldn't really stem the messianic fervor of the Jews, and the empire descended into this costly chaos. But as an element of the imperial cult and of the vanity of the Caesar, it just worked like a charm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
More
then
perfectly.
Constantine is a Flavian. I mean, there's
Flavius
another,
Constantine.
yeah, Flavius Constantine, and he actually, there's inscriptions in stone where he honors the family, his ancient family, and in fact, he put his arch, the Arch of Constantine, is right next to the original first century Flavians' religious edifices like the Arch of Titus
Mm-hmm.
and the Colosseum. So he put himself right there, saying, "Hey, I'm a Flavian too," um, and he then brought back the family cult. Well, he gave it the power of the Roman military. Basically, this is what happened. This is why
Mm-hmm.
Christianity is even known today. It's even
Mm-hmm.
something that's memorized. We're aware of it. Flavian gives it the military backing of Rome, and gets rid of the imperial cult, because basically he's replacing the imperial cult with a Flavian cult that doesn't have any other gods being worshipped. You see,
Yeah.
even though it seems like it's monotheism,
Mm-hmm.
kind of paganism is ending. Actually, what's happening is that Constantine is setting up just one individual who is going to be the receptacle of all of this glory,
Mm-hmm.
and that's him, the Caesar.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why his mausoleum is so critical for understanding, our history. Anyway, so this was the kind of the backdrop of what happened with the Gospels, and why the future of Christianity is, I think, really very dubious. I don't
Yeah.
think it. I mean, it isn't going to go another 2,000 years. It's, you know, um, who knows? It's what the revelation of Christianity is. It's simply an element of the revelation of the use of historical narratives for the purpose of social control. That's really what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why it's meeting so much resistance. It's because Christianity is very important for social control right now, and so this is uh, and Christianity isn't the only thing that is, that the population is basically quizzical about, right? I mean, you can see everything now is being questioned. It's
Mm-hmm.
all being questioned, and so it's just one part of it, but it's an important part. And if you see, like Caesar's Messiah suddenly, being like discussed in the New York Times or something, you know that the entire kind of structure that the present feudal system is supported by is going to collapse very shortly.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It doesn't have to be Christianity. There's a whole other. There's many narratives that are out there. I mean, I think the Holocaust can't stand a whole lot of scrutiny. I don't think 9/11 can stand a lot of scrutiny. I don't think World War II can stand a lot of scrutiny. Or, I think all of these narratives, that we believe certain things, and this enables us to exist in our culture, without rebellion. But the narratives that keep us in place are there for social control. And once one of them falls, Billy, I'm telling you, once one completely falls, I mean, if 9/11 falls, I think all the rest of them will fall too, because once the public gets in this momentum of skepticism, all of the historical narratives of the present feudal system will collapse.